Hi guys, Chris here from High Island DIY. Today I'm working on building a couple of chainsaw mills. So we're going to start off by talking a little bit about the tools you're going to need for small welding projects and general metal work. Alright, so one real handy thing to have is different size C-clamps. I got 8-inch, 4-inch, 3-inch, 2-inch. And I have multiple different sizes of these. Just wanted to show you a small sampling of them. You can usually buy packages of them at like Menards or Lowe's or even Harbor Freight, Northern Tools, stuff like that. Another thing, of course, you're going to need is a good tape measure and a small carpenter's square to make sure your angles are correct. A slag hammer for when you're welding, a file so you get nice clean contacts, wire brush to clean up steel and remove slag. Another handy thing to have is vice grips in different sizes. Even the needle nose ones come in handy. And of course, with welding or grinding, you're going to want some sort of leather gloves. Some people like the insulated ones. I prefer non-insulated, just so you got a little bit better dexterity. And you can also feel, like, when a piece of slag lands you and start burning, it's not going to burn your whole glove. You'll feel the heat right away. Be able to stop welding and take them off. The other big thing you're going to need is material. I've just got a small sampling of material here. This is just all thread, some 1x1 square tubing, and then of course some flat stock about 1/4 inch thick. This is just what I have left over from one of my projects to give you a small sample of the types of materials. Now don't think that you need to go out and buy, you know, square stock steel or something like that. If you got a small project like a chainsaw mill you want to build, look in your local newspaper or on Craigslist, find like old bed frames. You can usually pick them up for nothing, or even, you know, $5-10. And that angle iron that's in the bed frame works excellent for welding up projects. Good stock material. You can build just about anything you want out of angle iron, and you can get it for really cheap. Alright, so now onto the welder. Okay, so this is a welder I have. It's about 15 years old, as you can tell. I mean, it's been around a bit. And you can pick up these flux core wire feed welders at like Menards or Lowe's or Northern Tool, Harbor Freight, anything like that. Usually anywhere from $100 to $200, depending on the model, the size, what kind of metal, what thickness of metal you want to weld. And what's nice about the flux core wire, you don't have to have bottles of gas. It's not a gas shielded weld. It's shielded by the flux in the core of your wire. So you might not get as pretty a welds. You might have a little more slag on the outside that you got to grind off or take your wire brush to. But it's still, for somebody who does small projects, it's definitely a good investment and a good way to save money versus buying a big professional grade welder. Alright, another thing you might want to have is a grinder. Instead of just a file or a wire brush, I've just got an old Makita grinder here I got from Northern Tool. Let me open this up quick here. Alright, so it's just a 4.5 inch angle grinder, Makita from Northern Tool. I think it was like $29. And I've had this for probably about 15 years. So, I mean, it lasts. It's not the most expensive, high quality thing in the world. But for somebody who just does occasional welding and grinding, it's definitely a valuable thing to have. Alright, cutting your stock, of course you can use a chop saw or a hacksaw. I like just using a regular sawzall with a bimetal blade in it. Of course you're going to want to put anything you're cutting in a vise instead of trying to hold it by your hand when you're using a sawzall. This is just a cheap tool shop one that I got from Menards for $19, and I don't use it a whole lot, just for small projects, so it works good for me. But if you don't use it every day, if you're not a professional, you don't really need to spend big money on it. Alright, so now we got most of the tools that you're going to need. Now I'm going to show you a little bit the chainsaw mill I've been working on. Alright, so I cleaned up a little bit of stuff off my welding bench, and I got the chainsaw mill set up on there. So this is what I've got so far. I looked at a couple designs of guys who's built one on YouTube before, and There's a basic living book by Reader's Digest that's got a lot of useful things in it, and they showed, I think, an example of a Granberg chainsaw mill in there. So I just looked at a couple pictures and seen the couple videos the guy's done, and I was able to weld something up. So far, I've only used it once. It worked fairly well. I'd like to get some indicators painted up and put some indicators on here for the depth I'm cutting. Right now I just use a tape measure down to my bar. And I'd like to sand this all down and get a paint on it so it stops the rusting. You can see that it's almost all built out of that 1-inch square tubing that I showed you a sample of earlier. All this steel I had laying around, so I didn't have to spend any money on it, which is nice because those Granberg chainsaw mills are around $300, $200, $300 depending on the model. So let me show you a little bit what I have here. I've got the center handle at an angle. I just found that was most comfortable for me when I was mocking it up. It worked well the first time I used it, so hopefully it'll stay nice. To raise and lower the height, I've just got a piece of channel iron, and I welded a nut on, and this bolt is the same size as your chainsaw tool, so you don't have to carry extra wrenches. And I've got 3 center runners. This is what rides on your guide to give you your flush or level cut. To attach it to the chainsaw, I've got a couple pieces of flat stock with a extra piece welded on each one so that these pieces of flat stock on the side don't come in contact with the chain. Welding that little spacer in the middle gives it plenty of room. And then again, just bolts I had laying in my bolt bin. You want to make sure you either have a lock washer on here or a lock nut, because of the vibrations of the running chainsaw and cutting the wood. You don't want this to come loose and have your chainsaw slip into one of your bolts on the end. Other side, same thing. And the chainsaw I have is a POULAN Pro 2050, I think it is. So with a 20-inch bar, you have a gear in the end of your bar to spin your chain on the very tip. So you're going to lose about 3 inches, I'd say, because you don't want to put any pressure from the mounting points of your mill near that gear on the end, because it's going to cause extra friction. It's going to cause your chain not to be able to spin as fast as it should, and it's going to cause overheating of your bar. So with a 20-inch bar, I was able to get about, I don't know, 15 inches, I think it was, 16 inches. So right there I got about 15.5 inches, which I know isn't very big, but I'm also working on another attachment for the chainsaw just to be able to slab the sides off of a log so that I can use the mill to cut my dimensional lumber with. Alright, so the other chainsaw mill attachment I've been working on is this right here. And it's somewhat like the beam machine, which they sell. You can find it on Amazon. But all it does is it clamps on your chainsaw bar, which I haven't mounted a clamp yet, but it just rides right along the 2x4 that you screw on top of your log. So you can slab off the side and make your log a little bit narrower, square it up. And since 2x4s aren't actually 2 inches by 4 inches, you can't just measure up 2x4 and weld this. So what I did was I took a scrap piece of 2x4, and I took a couple pieces of that channel stock I had left over, 3 pieces of the 1-inch square tubing, and I took a thing of brads and I set it between the steel and the 2x4, and then I clamped it tight onto the 2x4, so that'll give me, you know, a 1/16 of an inch, so it's not tight on the 2x4, so it'll slide freely. So I clamped it on there, and then I used my carpenter square to make sure I had square 90-degree angles and welded this on here. Now, I was kind of puzzled on how to mount this to a chainsaw bar, and I looked at the beam machine online. I looked at it, and it looked like just a miniature C-clamp that had 2 screws that you could tighten up against your chainsaw bar, I seen another example from a YouTuber who had just a C-clamp welded on the top, and I decided I was going to kind of copy a little bit of both. So what I came up was I got this chunk of all thread, a couple nuts on there. I think I'm going to put one or two more, and I'm just going to weld the nuts onto the top of the flat stock. And the all thread is going to let me be able to pivot when the nuts are welded, so I can guide my chainsaw down into the log. And then onto the all thread, I'm just going to take one of my extra C-clamps, and I'm going to weld right onto the C-clamp. Run a bead of weld along both sides, make sure it's nice and at a 90-degree angle. I guess it's not a 90-degree angle. Nice and parallel to the C-clamp. Make sure that's welded up tight, and then I'll just use the one mounting point to the bar of the chainsaw. So that's the plan for this one. The other one's all done except for paint, and when I get them all done, I will be showing them in use. Hopefully you guys can take inspiration from these designs. They're not 100% original by any means, but it's just showing you another way of possibly doing it. And like I said before about using angle iron from a bed frame, all this stuff I showed you could be made from the 90-degree L-shape angle iron that you can find on bed frames. So you don't have to spend a lot of money on a project like this. I mean, yeah, some people might say the beam machine's only $40. I can go and buy one and not be out that much money. But, you know, working on your skills, practicing welding on small projects like this, you know, if you ever have to build something more expensive or better, you're going to have that skill. You're going to have learned that skill and practiced that skill in the past. You'll be able to do a better job on bigger, more expensive projects. Alright, hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing the two projects I've been working on, the small chainsaw mills. I will be showing them in use as soon as I get the second one finished up. Like I said, I did cut one slab off of a log with this chainsaw mill that I finished welding up. But the log is like 20 some inches in diameter, so it won't fit through the mill after the first slab off the top. That's why I'm building the second smaller beam machine type mill, so I can slab the sides off and then mill some dimensional lumber out of it. So as soon as I get the second one done, I'll be showing them both in use. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, and comment, and we'll see you on the next video.